Hey guys, Rob Avis here. Today I'm going to be going through a passive solar greenhouse design that one of our students from the Advanced Passive Solar Greenhouse Design course has just finished. It's a really neat greenhouse and I think you're going to get a few things out of this case study. So Nathan from Raven Ridge Farm in North Carolina has designed this greenhouse specifically to create hemp starts that they're going to be planting out in fields around or on their farm. And so there's a lot of really interesting aspects to this particular greenhouse. In addition, he's attaching it to a building underneath a patio, which is concrete. And so there's all sorts of unique constraints that I've never actually come across. And so through his design, we end up looking at some of the components that he's decided upon, and we make some modifications and some recommendations around how to improve this particular design so that it's future expandable, and also to deal with some potential cooling issues that might occur as a result of some of the designs that have been created. So I think you'll get a lot out of this if you're looking for ideas around how to create innovative passive solar greenhouses that fit into existing infrastructure, as well as if you're looking for a unique opportunity or idea around a different type of business and how you can potentially use these greenhouses for different farming applications. So take a look at the case study, and if you're interested in finding out more about our free intro to passive solar greenhouse design, check the show notes below, and we'll also put some links to Raven Ridge Farm as well. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great day. Hey folks, how's it going here? Hey folks, how's it going? It's Rob Avis here. I'm here with Nathan from Raven Ridge Farm in North Carolina, and today we're going to be going over his passive solar greenhouse design. And once we kind of go through the design that he's produced, then we're going to give him a bit of feedback, and yeah, and then hopefully we'll actually get a chance to come and see it, maybe this year even, and do a profile on it. So welcome, Nathan.
That'd be great. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Awesome. So why don't you take me through all the aspects of your design?
You want me to pull it back up on the screen?
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. Let me know if you can't see that.
That's great.
So this is a greenhouse that's going in underneath an existing insul deck porch, so a concrete porch that's insulated. So we're a little limited on some of our design decisions based on the structure that's already there. So the red here is all existing structure with the columns. The columns are cement with facade of stucco.
Right.
So the green is where we're anticipating adding walls, and we're considering right now just doing that with treated 2x4 or 2x6, and it'll be closed in on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And then the openings there are the main openings across the front here. They're all 4 feet wide, 4 feet high, approximately 4 feet high. And we would be looking at using polycarbonate, probably the three ply or whatever they call it, with 3 layers. Above that are openable transom windows, I guess you'd call them, for ventilation at the top. Mm-hmm. And then that's really the majority of what we would add. On the west wall here, this is facing almost due south, 5 degrees off south. So on the west wall, which is on the left here, we would put a door in and maybe a window, but I don't know that we would get a lot of value from that. So we may just insulate that entire side and just have a one door coming in.
Cool. So what do you plan on doing inside of this greenhouse?
This is intended to be for hemp clones primarily.
Okay.
I think that there's a lot of other things that we may do, and this design easily fits 1,500 clones, which is the max that we would do here. And it also still has some room in the back. In fact, I think I can hide the deck here, and we can actually see a little bit better the space inside it. So across the front here, this shelving, which would have to be several vertical layers high,
Yeah.
would fit 1,500 clones. And then we're designing it such that we could do a small aquaponics system, like off of an IBC tote, and do a grow bed along the back where it doesn't get sun. So we'd have to light that, and potentially have another grow bed across the front if we ended up going down that road in the future.
So have you looked at the sun angles to see if you need any additional light coming in through the roof there?
I know what the sun angles are. I haven't done any calculations beyond knowing that we get enough hours of light in the months that we need it, which is basically we would start clones in March, beginning of March, and we would have clones out the door by May. And so that's the only window that we need. Ideally would have enough sunlight to grow stuff. If we don't, then we can put a row of hopefully some low cost supplemental lighting, LED lighting or something, hang that from the ceiling above those transom windows. So that's what we're anticipating right now.
Off the top of your head, do you know what the angles are within that window of time?
I don't off the top of my head, but I can definitely pull them back up.
Okay, so one thing I'd recommend while you're pulling that up is that, because SketchUp's really great for this, you can actually draw those angles in.
Right.
And then just see how far back the sun is actually going to shine in the space so if you look at it on the west side there, you could actually just draw those angles right on the bottom of the window.
Sure. And see where they come through.
Yep. And then you can do a sun analysis, because you might actually be able to get, it'd be interesting to do that. And then the other thing is that you might actually play around with putting some operable skylights into, so what I might recommend, just looking at this, is put your transom windows down on the bottom side, and then potentially put some operable skylights up on the roof. And so you might have to, change your roof design a little bit to have curbs so that you're not going to have water issues. But then you've got a really nice up-down airflow. So you could move your transom windows down to the bottom, so it doesn't change your material spec. And maybe even extend your windows all the way up.
Yeah.
And then having operable skylights on the top gives you really nice kind of thermal siphoning of the air in the space.
Yeah. So
the skylights. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just asking if you're referring to the operable skylights just at the very top of these walls?
No, I would put them in the roof.
Well, so we can't, because I haven't got all this drawn in, but all the red here is actually a concrete deck that already exists.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is our main house, and this is the main floor with a deck out in front of it that's insulated concrete.
Okay.
Yep. So our limitation is just that front wall is the only light we can get.
Sure. Okay. So then I would just put another bank of transom windows at the bottom.
At the bottom. Yep.
Yeah. And I would still do the sun analysis just to see how far back the sun's going to go. And you might find that extending those windows all the way down, and then having the operable windows at the bottom. So you've got a big pane kind of in the middle, and then a set of operable on the bottom and a set of operable on the top would be really effective.
Yep. And you feel like the trade-off, our assumption here was that we wouldn't have any shelving below, fairly comfortable working height. And so having light down that low wasn't worth it. So we assumed that having better insulation down lower was the worthwhile trade-off. But you're suggesting that having light all the way to the bottom is better, even if you lose a little insulative value.
Not necessarily. Your logic could be really valid, actually. And so if you don't need the light after you've done your sun analysis and you're happy with what's coming through, and you don't need any more additional shelves there, well, there's a couple of ways you could do this. You could build it in with the windows and then put some insulated plugs in there, so that down the road, if you ever wanted to add more shelves in and have more light and produce more clones, let's say, then you can just pull those plugs out, and then you're not having to necessarily rebuild the wall necessarily. If, however, though, for sure you're never going to want additional light coming in on those front surfaces, then the operable vents on the bottom can just be made out of a hinged plywood plug with some insulation behind it.
Sure.
and then you don't need to use the glazing in there because you don't need the light. And so you get the benefit of the insulated wall and the benefit of the vent all in one.
Yep, that definitely makes sense. I know airflow is going to be our biggest challenge with this design because we don't really have the opportunity for much cross ventilation. I should just note while we're talking about it that back in the back here, of course, cuts out the whole wall, but for about 4 feet from the west end underneath, there's actually a porch as well. So there's an opening back there that we can cut a vent into in order to get air, and that can be low or high or, both. So at least we can draw a little bit of air from underneath this porch back here, but that's really our only low inlet opportunity if we don't do something along the front, like you're suggesting.
Well, I think you should do both. If it's in fact a porch, then it's going to be shaded, and you can definitely get some cooling effect from that. That's pretty.
I think so for sure.
And the high vents on the front, again, with the air heating up inside of there, it's going to naturally draw from both sides. And then you may also want to, while you're in the construction phase, accommodate a fan on that west wall. And so you can actually build in a set of bucks right now and so size the fan out so that you've got the ability to turn an electric fan on if you need it.
Yep.
And build it without the fan initially, but spec the fan right now and go bigger than you think you need.
Yep.
And then down the road, again, you can just pull a plug out of there and stick a fan in. And you may even want to make it such that it's a seasonal thing. So in the springtime, you might not need that fan. But if you're going to continue to do something in there through the summer and it gets really hot, again, you got to do your sun analysis and get those angles to see. I'm curious to see how this space would react in the summertime based on you guys are quite a bit further south than us. So your sun angle shouldn't get quite as high. So I suspect you're going to have a really productive space there, even in the summertime with vertical glazing. That
may be true. There's a small overhang from the porch, but it's not significant. So I don't think it's more than 8 inches.
I think you're going to be able to produce in that front row there all summer long.
That's nice. Yep.
And so the fan there will help you to, and what's really cool about that is if you actually put some vents into that porch, then you might find in the summertime, for example, that the air coming off the porch is way cooler, or the overhang there.
Yep.
And so you could feather your vents front or back in order to pull more air from the back versus the front if you've got that really cool space there. And by placing some, you could even put, you can kind of build your own version of a swamp cooler, essentially, especially in your climate. And you could put some totes underneath the vent space right now, and then put bars that are perpendicular. I'm not sure if this is making sense, but perpendicular to the airflow.
Sure.
And then hang hemp mats or felt mats down into the water.
Yep.
So as the air gets pulled out of the space, it'll get run along these mats that are wicking water up, and it'll provide you with really inexpensive cooling to keep the space manageable.
Yeah. So the swamp coolers are most efficient in low humidity, is that right, or high humidity?
They tend to be in low humidity, and you guys are in a high humidity environment.
We're in medium humidity, so I think that I've heard of people in our area using them, and that's why I was curious. And I think certainly in certain times of the year, it would be totally economical and inexpensive. Yep. So even if it does a little bit, it's basically free. I think it's well worth it.
Well, I wouldn't buy a commercial swamp cooler, but you can definitely build one pretty inexpensively, just with some old fabric and a tote with water kind of thing.
Yep, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see a design, maybe a link to something could go out at some point.
Well, I can just quickly draw one here for you, just to kind of get a sense of what I'm talking about.
Yep, I think I have a pretty good idea, but it sounded like you knew exactly.
I mean, the principle here is that so if you've got let's draw here. I don't know if I can draw this in. So if the vent is right here, and we've got airflow coming in this direction right here. So this would be the bottom of the space. Then essentially, and then we put a water tote down below, and you put some rods. I'll just put them right here.
Mm-hmm.
And delete those and change the color to black. So you could just literally suspend these rods, you know, right in the tote even if you wanted, or around the tote, it's fine.
Sure.
And then I'll change the color again. You get some fabric, like felt or something, and then you hang a felt fabric into the water so that
like baffles.
Exactly. And then the water itself will wick up into the fabric, and I'll draw it in another view as well.
Yep.
So then as the air moves through these baffles, it should cool itself down, especially because it's shaded as well.
Yep.
It'll pick up some moisture, so that's why it works best in dry environments.
Mm-hmm.
But you should get some cooling off of that. And
Sure.
this air will get drawn out either by the top vents that are sitting somewhere over here or the fan.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other way of looking at, so this is again, let me change the color so it's the same. So if this is the vent and we're looking into the page right now, then your fabric is going to hang vertically into, and the more of these baffles you have, the more humidification you'll get, but also the more air resistance you're going to get. So there'll be a balance between the number of baffles and so then your tote would sit down. Oops, your tote would sit down here.
Yep.
And the water would wick upwards through these mats, essentially.
Yep.
And then the air would move perpendicular to those baffles.
And the green rectangle is the fan pulling it in, or is just a...
No, this is the vent in the wall at the bottom of your greenhouse.
Yep.
Yeah. So just to kind of put that in perspective, the vents, if this is this would be the greenhouse floor. We can change the color here to gray. This is the greenhouse floor. And so this over here is south, right? Okay. Can you follow me?
Yep. You're coming from under the porch in the back there.
Porch is on this side.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And south to the right. Yep.
And then your vent would be somewhere up. Your other vent would be somewhere up here. Your operable vent. Would be something like that, a little more straight than what I've drawn it. And so air would move through this baffle, and it's not to scale at all, but air would move through this baffle and then out of this top vent right here.
Yep.
And you could also have air movement, like I said, and you could feather it depending on, maybe it's full blast. You just want all the air coming through as fast as you can, but you could have air coming up through the bottom vents down here that we talked about.
Yep.
So another vent on this side. And so you can either draw air this way or air this way, depending on what you want.
Yep. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So yeah, I think other than that though, I think if you just add that, add the possibility for a fan in there, something pretty substantial. You probably want some air movement inside the space as well. So some roof mounted fans. And then the bottom transom vents on the front, as you called them, and then the top vents as well. I think you've got a winning design there.
Okay.
And then just do a bit of a sun analysis.
Yep, we definitely will. If you have a moment for a quick question about the foundation.
Yep.
That's the other area that we've had some questions about because we were limited by what was already done. that the red slab down here at the bottom
Mm-hmm.
was not insulated on the left two sections.
Okay.
So it was insulated. We added this later to the right or in the middle here, and that's all insulated underneath. So we can't practically get underneath there and do a whole lot. And we've got some just issues with the driveway and so on along the side as well that we have to contend with. So our plan was to just take ICF blocks, which is what each of these yellow blocks is, and dig underneath the footer the slab just a little bit, cut one side of the H basically of the block down a little bit so that it could go underneath the slab, and leave the other side up a little bit below the top of the slab and pour that full with cement. And then we'll obviously have to flash over top. But I guess the question is, do you feel like that's worth doing in order to get the benefit of insulating the external face of this slab?
So one thing you could do, as long as you don't undermine the slab, is exactly what you're talking about. But instead of using ICF blocks, just put a vertical insulation plane down in the same fashion that you're talking about, and then build a bit of a retaining wall in front of it.
Sure.
With rock, if you've got rock on site. And then you kind of get the same benefit because the rock will hold the foam back. You just have to make sure you get foam that has enough compressive strength so that it's not gonna collapse. So typically I think we call that XPS up here, and we would typically use something with like a 40 psi compression strength, essentially, so that if the rocks are pushing into the foam, it's not going to compress them. And then if it's burial grade EPS as well, it's not going to absorb water. And then you could put a capstone on the top of that with flagstone or whatever you've got, just to keep any moisture from getting underneath there as well, because you're kind of creating a bit of a terrace there. So your idea works, is you just have to figure out how to tie in the concrete. But if you didn't want to use that system, you could also just use some other form of hoarding, essentially, is what we would call it up here.
No, got it. Very good. All right. I appreciate it.
Cool. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you guys do on your farm and how people can find out about you?
Sure. So let me get out of the screen share if I can.
Yep, there's a stop share at the top there.
So Raven Ridge Farm and Vineyard started as a vineyard, and we found that there aren't many grapes that'll grow here without various treatments. And so we've narrowed that down to one varietal, and we'll do something with grapes down the road, but it wasn't going to be the cash crop. So we've shifted towards hemp and medicinal herbs. And so we're focusing on CBD oil, the full stack from growing it to producing products, and focusing on techniques that use animals to restore and manage the land. So that's where we are now. We've got a long way to go. You can find out about us on our website, which does need some updating, but ravenridgefarmandvineyard.com. And we have a Facebook and Instagram that are occasionally updated as well. But the best way is probably to call or email, and all that info is on the website.
Great. Well, thanks so much for sharing your design. Nathan's just finished the Path to Solar Greenhouse design course with us, and you can see what he's produced as a result of it. If you want more information on Nathan, you can find out more information in the show notes below, and you'll find his URL. And if you want more information on the Path to Solar Greenhouse design course, I'll put a link to that as well, along with our free 30-minute intro that we provide to people that want to learn a little bit more about how to design a passive solar greenhouse. So all that information will be in the show notes below. If you found this video useful, please give us a like, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks, Nathan.
Thank you.